Good morning, dear jury. My name is Mariam Dasha, and this is my final year project. It started off with wanting to do something based on one of my interests. I've always been fascinated with horror and the paranormal. I was always an avid reader of both fiction and non-fiction mysteries and thrillers, which is how I came across the infamous Amityville, an early Dutch colonial house with 3 floors, an attic, a basement, and a patio. In assignment 1, I did thorough research into the basis of all claims. It was once owned by the DeFeo family, whose brother ended up shooting his family members while they were asleep. The reason as to why someone would do that to their family has still not been identified. Ownership of the house then fell onto the Lutz family, upon whom there was a movie made. It took them only 28 days to run out of the house, after which they contacted a parapsychologist named Hans Holzer, who claimed that the house was built on ancient Indian burial ground. He claims that the murders were orchestrated by the spirit of a tribal war chief who hasn't been able to find peace in death. This claim ricocheted research into the Long Island history, where I established the link between ancient Indian tribes and the site. When the Dutch explorer Adrian Block settled on the west side of Long Island, there already were tribes native to the land living there. In fact, there were 13. The settlement of the Dutch proves why the house was early Dutch colonial. They attained peace by trading fur for more modern equipment. It continued peacefully until feuds started to arise between the tribes around which one should be leading the transaction. This started a war between them, and hundreds of native Indians were killed around the town of Amityville. Moving forward to the experience of the Lutz family, in an interview they gave to Good Morning America, they claimed that the ceramics of the house, sometimes the walls would get covered in black slime, that doors would randomly burst open, the house was infested with flies. But I believe the biggest horror they faced was the psychological trauma, which is very important to note since it plays a major role in shaping my proposal. By the beginning of assignment 2, I had to set a direction in which I would be taking my new design. The goal for this proposal is in no way to suddenly revamp the house and bring forth a new Amityville. It is to simply create a space where tortured minds can feel at peace with their emotions. It is also to make one aware of the transcendence of time, so we are always in touch with the fact that we are a very mortal part of this universe. In other words, to accept death. Since I chose the topic of afterlife and paranormal, and my objective is to figure out how interior spaces can affect our psyche, I studied about metaphysics and the different theories related to the concept. Metaphysics is simply anything which cannot be explained away with science, and there indeed is something metaphysical about the human-spirit connection and our fate after death. 2 important theories surrounding metaphysics were the biophilia hypothesis and phenomenology. Being in touch with nature has proven to be beneficial for our minds, according to many studies I came across during my research. Horticultural activities such as gardening can be included under this, where one can possibly grow herbs which contains phytoncides in the scent that relieves stress. I had to figure out a way of bringing the landscape into built architecture, which means opening the form here and there to allow breathability. Under phenomenology, I studied rhythm and shadow theory. Shadows are synonymous with ghosts. We also know that for shadows to exist, there must be 2 elements, light and form. The form I intended to create for the space would feature a lot of rhythmic language. This repetition can be used to draw the attention of the user as well as make them more aware of the design. It also helps in making a statement by emphasizing on one shape. Repetitive forms also allow creation of negative and positive space. The negative space allows lighting while creating shadows on the rest. The important phenomenon created by this combination is that we are creating a temporary visual that is susceptible to change with the time of day. It isn't a form which is physically there but visually present, much like a ghost. Thus, we come to the final assignment for this semester. We were asked to choose a 4x4 meter space to demonstrate the strongest of our programming. The area I chose was the patio out on the backyard. For my design to be possible, I needed to break apart a section of the west wall of the house. It already had a doorway to the existing patio, therefore my design would not affect the structural integrity of the house. This design also is parasitic since I need to bring out the space into the landscape a bit to integrate it with biophilia. The primary activities for the Parasitic Patio are gardening, mostly lightweight, and outdoor dining. Herb gardening encourages the user to use herbs grown by themselves while brewing a cup of tea for a bit of rejuvenating time. Let's break down the design details and development. The zone selected features immobile but flexible design language, which means that the whole unit is not mobile, but components of the unit are designed to be moved around and adjusted to the user's needs. Firstly, I brought in the model Hydra to act as structural support and basic framing for the whole patio. However, I modified the shape to reflect the signature roof profile of the Dutch colonial house. This structure is made up of steel beams, and any wood connectors attached to it, such as at these points, would be with bolts. The second drawing shows the closed version of the patio. The idea for multiple windows to be able to open and close in different angles and directions was inspired by the experiences of the Lutz family. They claimed that the entity that was haunting the house either wanted to get out or wanted to push people out. So they had instances where the windows would close themselves or the doors would burst open as if by storm. I decided to apply this as part of the design. Apart from paying homage to their story and the site's history, these windows allow the user to regulate the amount of sunlight coming into the space at any given point. In fact, at noon, the table, the walkway, and the garden bed are the only spaces where the sunlight strikes, as these spaces represent movement. The reason it is not automated or attached with pulleys or a lever system is so that the user can consciously move them to any angle they want. I wanted the user to go through the motion of opening and closing the space. It is a way of physically engaging them with the built architecture. The windows are attached to the structure on sliding runners so they can close down and open wide. Torque hinges allow it to open and lock at every 5-degree angle. The third model shows the opened-up patio. Apart from the windows, some furniture inside the space is also flexible, like these chairs, which can be folded away when not needed but can be opened and used for seating around the swinging dining table. The movement is allowed by Chicago bolts around a threaded rod, which goes through all these units here. Once open, the legs rest against the backing, holding the weight of the person. Since this is an interior design project, spatial continuity from indoors to outdoors was an integral part to be considerate of. My design demands the programming to be spilled outdoors. Therefore, I need the foam to be tied into the house, so one can't simply just chop off the patio and still have the indoor dining room be functional. To attain this, I designed a single modular unit that is connected to smaller units through both indoors and outdoors. This module here is connected to the dining table inside, which then branches out on a bench seat right here. The primary wall of this unit then branches out another arm, which acts as seating on either side for both the indoor space and outdoor space. If you take away this primary wall here, the entire indoor dining table would disappear and the room would lose its functionality. I then spread the gardening activity around the dining area to enclose the space in biophilia. Yet I left out the boundary walls on these two sides of the patio, so the garden will be accessible to anybody even on the outside of the patio. The design was carefully crafted to blend both outdoors with indoors. It also resonates the architecture of the house by using the original windows as part of the proposed design. As mentioned before, this proposal pays homage to the site as well as the story of the residents while creating something beautiful out of negative experiences. That is the end of my presentation. I welcome the jury for any questions. Thank you.